So I was told to feel a little bit more comfortable as you picture the crowd naked. Our teddy bears. And I don't know why Matt's smiling at me so big after I said that, but I now feel a little uncomfortable. So 3 questions. Who in here hasn't invested but wants to start investing? Good. Now, who in here is investing but is stuck, whether that's acquisition, money, contractors? Boom. Sure. Okay, the other part of the room. Now, who came here just for the pizza? Hey, at least you're honest. Again, this being my first time, I like to know how I did. Inside my computer, I have an Excel spreadsheet. In the near future, I'm going to be starting a Discord for real estate investors, and we are going to be talking about deal finding, running numbers. We're going to be passing out deals to select students. We'll have contractor contacts. That's usually a big problem for real estate investors. Problem solving, and then bringing in special guests like insurance agents, appraisers, and stuff like that, so you can learn. Because if you're going to do the BRRRR, you got to know how to get the ARV up. I'm going to dive into that here in a little bit. So if you feel like I'm a guy that you can work with and learn from, at the very end, I got this computer here. You ain't going to hurt my feelings if you don't. Just reevaluate, because this is a dream of mine to be here, be real honest with you, and to share these ideas with you, from years and years ago. You want to mount to somebody, you want to be somebody, and sometimes life gets the best of us where we don't do what we're called to do and move in the direction we're supposed to be moving, whatever it is, fear or what other people are saying. When I went into business in 2009, people told me not to do it. And so I want to start off with this quote: never give up on a dream for the amount of time that it will take. The time will pass either way. So a lot of us in here, the ones that are, haven't gotten into real estate investing, there's always a reason. Maybe there's an excuse. It's too hot outside. The interest rates are too high. Can't find contractors. Not a good tenants. My uncle did this and failed. Whatever the reason is, they're not good enough reasons for you to give up on your dreams and start right now. Begin immediately, because when this year passes, you're going to look back on this moment. You either did something or you did nothing. But I promise you, when the year goes by, and if you take action now, you'll be so thankful that you did, because you're going to become a brand new person. You're not even going to recognize who you are in this moment right now. You will become somebody new. So begin taking that action immediately. So let's dive into this, all right? The strategy that I'm doing, we started on this, the BRRRR. Does anyone here not know what the BRRRR strategy is? Perfect. Well, so the BRRRR: buy, renovate, rehab, refinance, repeat to scale. I'm going to explain this in more detail. This is my exact strategies going through here, and I really believe you're going to get a lot of value. So I am currently using DSCR loans, cash out. So save questions for the end. I'm going to break this all down really, really soon. I do 95% of my properties are Section 8. There's a lot of bad rap around that, and I'm going to clean that up today because I absolutely love it. Whenever I am invested in real estate, I'm looking for my all-in cost. And what I mean with all-in cost is just purchase and rehab to be less than $100,000. Really, this has been the biggest secret right here. With this strategy, I will add guaranteed another $2.5 million from now to the end of the year to the portfolio. With the same strategy, I will help my students add $1.5 million to their portfolio by the end of the year. I want to jump into my story real quick so you know where I came from and how we ended up here today. So my story starts we're going to start with 2009. We won't go back further than that. So in 2009, I was working for the union, laborers 264. At some point in that journey, I started the tree service. Started doing trees Saturday and Sunday. Monday through Friday, I was traveling around Missouri for the union. And well, you can't really start a family or do anything special when you're out of town and you're working all weekend. Well, it got to the point I started making more money over the weekend. And so what does any entrepreneur do when you're making more money in your business than you are at your job? You take your hard helmet off and you throw it at your boss and say, I'm done. True story. I have the hard helmet hanging up in my basement. So when I started my business, my parents were so proud of me. They're extremely wealthy. So they gave me $2 million. I took their money, invested in real estate, and that's how we ended up with this. I am lying, yes. So no, we lived a few blocks off the Independence Avenue growing up. It was really hard times. We had to kick the van 3 times to get it started. The windows didn't even roll down. So we lived that life growing up. My mom remarried. We ended up about middle class, and you know, they worked out their life. Absolutely love my parents, and they did the best they could there. I read a book by Michael Gerber called E-Myth Revisited. Yeah. And in that book, it talked about a baker, and she made the best cakes, pies, and she couldn't ever scale her business because she had the secret family recipe. So she trapped herself inside her business because trying to duplicate what she was doing, she felt like she was the best at it. And so every time she tried to hire someone else that they'd mess up a little bit, she'd just fire them. So I was the same as that baker inside the tree business. I realized that I felt like I was the best. So every time I brought in a new tree climber, I just would always go behind him and do it again. And so I decided to get out of that business. I was in that business to go into real estate. I just had no money, and I just was just trying to make the best step moving forward. And so after doing the trees, I shut it down and started another company called Extraordinary Majors. Yes, the email sucked. I didn't realize it at the time, but trying to explain that to people was an absolute nightmare. And, you know, did you say majors or did you say measures? I was like, I said measures, like measuring tape. And so it was tough. But so I went into construction, and I had 0 construction experience. I hired a guy named Uncle Michael. It was not my uncle, it was my buddy's uncle. And we started doing jobs. Things were going great. And as my name got out there, we brought in new clients. And then next thing you know, I got 2 jobs laid out in front of me that had sold. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. So I had Uncle Michael on job A and job B. And you can imagine that the plates started falling. One guy trying to divide and conquer while I was doing the tree business. Again, it was hard to scale. Well, I had the bright idea one day I had to go find an Uncle Bob and put him on a second job. And then I quickly realized, well, if I could find one tile guy, I can find another tile guy. If I find one painter, I can find another painter. And scaling in that way, when you're not physically doing the work, I really didn't have a choice because I really was not handy at all. And so that made the business of duplicating myself very, very easy. And so then once I started learning the art of getting rehabs done, so I had a mentor that helped me create better processes and systems. And as I developed those processes and systems inside the construction business, I decided I wanted to start a coaching business called Strategic Investor Academy. So through that, I had to find clients. I got on a Facebook page and got on Stacy Cronkley's Facebook page. I don't know what her page name is, she changed it like 10 times. And so there was investors on there that were asking questions. Well, how do I deal with this with the contractor? What if they do this? And all the advice people were given was terrible. So I jumped on and said, hey, actually, this is what I would do in this situation. Well, after doing that a few times, Stacy Cronkley said, hey, I appreciate you coming in here and giving this advice. She goes, would you want to jump on a 1-hour Zoom call with me? And, you know, we can just, you know, hammer you with questions, and you tell us like what you do and the processes. Absolutely. So long story short, we did the Zoom meeting. She posted it. It went viral. And after it went viral, this guy from Abu Dhabi reached out to me and said, hey man, would you be interested in going to real estate investing? And it was a dream of mine. I just was slowly, you know, making my way there.
You were doing jobs for clients?
I was doing jobs for clients, yes. And so the guy from Abu Dhabi said, hey, I have the money. If you can get the job done, we'll split the profits. So we did our first flip together. We split the profits. Now, dummy me, I didn't do no contract, and I couldn't even shake the guy's hand because he's in a completely different country.
The Dubai guy?
Huh?
The Dubai guy?
The Dubai, yeah. And so luckily he was honest. But if you're forming any kind of partnerships, and if you're trying to get started, I think forming a partnership is the best thing you can do. But I'm going to get more into that here in a minute. So I did a few house flips, and then I was approached by another guy that said, hey, do you want to sell turnkey rentals to hedge funds? I put them off for several months. It sounded too good to be true, and I finally decided to pull the trigger and said, you know what, let's do one. If you can show me a house and kind of run me through some numbers, we'll do it. So I did the first one, we bought it for 30, I put 30 into it, and then sold it for like 130. And selling to the hedge fund, it was sold in 2 weeks. There was no paperwork. It was like taking candy from a baby. It really wasn't fair. I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes, I promise. I just want to get this little backstory out of the way, and then the next part's going to be value. I promise you, you're going to want to take notes. This is exactly what I'm doing right now, and it works extremely well. So I started doing selling turkey rentals to the hedge funds, and brought in another cash partner. He was actually working for Geico, and I was like, hey man, you got some money. He's one of my buddies, one of my best friends now. I said, man, you said you got some money. I was like, I got my money tied up in these flips. I was like, I have an opportunity. You give me some cash, I can make you a return on your investment. He goes, sure, dude, I trust you. He goes, how much you need? I was like, I don't know, man. Send me, I think it was like $60,000 or $70,000. Took the money, invested it, turned the property, sold it to the hedge fund, gave his money back, and plus half the profit. We did that a couple times, and about that time, this is close to July of 22, the hedge funds just quit buying. They called up one day and they said, we're done. I said, whoa, I have 7 properties for you. You can't just pull the rug. I was like, well, at least buy these real quick. I pleaded with them. And basically, no, Michael figured it out. So through that, it really was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because honestly, I would still probably be flipping right now. I have 7 properties. I listed 4 on the open market. I sold 3 for a higher profit and lost $8,000 on the other one. And then the other property, I had a partner on it, and he said, man, why don't we turn this into a rental? You know, we got the cash into it, we don't owe anybody, finish the rehab, put a tenant in there, and then refinance it, right? The BRRRR. That's what we did. We had $60,000 into it. This is actually in Wichita, Kansas. We got it all done, got it rented, went to the bank. The rehab only took 30 days. Went to the bank and said, hey, it's time to refinance. Here's what we got. Here's the rent. And the bank told me it's going to be a 6-month season period. I said, what the hell is a 6-month season? And they said, you got your cash in there, and since it's your own personal cash, you got to let that money season for 6 months because of money laundering laws. I didn't know that, dude. I needed that money back because I had a lot going on. So I didn't accept that. So at the time, I called the smartest guy I knew. It's actually right back there, Luther Wilson. And yeah, I'm calling you out. If you haven't talked to Luther, man, this guy is awesome. Doing a lot of business right now. And so called Luther and said, dude, the bank told me 6-month season. So I said, hey, how are you doing that? And he goes, man, you can get 3 months, bro. He goes, keep calling around. Here's my lender, and you can call them. And I was like, all right, well, 3 months is good, but that sucks, dude. I mean, that's still 2 more months away. I was like, I really want to pull this money out now. So we hammered the phones. Long story short, my business partner, one of my business partners, got a hold of a guy, found a bank that was no season. And that is like a secret sauce for me to scale this fast. Because if you're letting your money season for 3 months, scaling is this fast. It was really, really hard. So once we got the no season period figured out, we refinanced out. Now here's the crazy part, is that we had about $65,000 in there. And after the house got appraised, we fixed the turn up, we made it really nice. They appraised it, and we was able to pull out $30,000 on top of our investment. I think it's like $37,000 to be exact. So we get our initial investment back, plus $37,000 tax-free. I didn't even understand that at the time. Someone just says tax-free, I was like, that's cool. I put it away, and we still put it in the books. It made me nervous that I was doing something illegal. But it changed everything for me. And so from that point on, I was like, well, I'm done flipping. If you can buy a property, fix it up, rent it out, cash out, refinance, and pull equity money out, this is called the leverage BRRRR. And so there's 2 games you can play to this. I'm gonna dive into this, but you can have the cash flow. So if you have a property that you're $90,000 in and it's worth $150,000, you can do rate and term and have a lower mortgage payment and higher passive income in a month. Or you can play the leverage game and pull the equity out of the property, so your mortgage payment is going to be a lot more. You're going to make less per month, but you're cashing out those funds to reinvest. And so I didn't understand that in the beginning, that there's a leverage in the cash flow game. I thought I was playing the cash flow game. I was trying to mix both of them. I'm not going to go into all those that happened in the very beginning. You can ask me after this if you want more details on the struggles that I had in there trying to tell you. Dude, what I'm about to tell you right here, it can absolutely change your life. I went through the pain, the suffering, the hard points of making these mistakes, putting your money in and going, hey, it's 6-month season. That sucked. Putting these deals together, buying in the wrong areas, and then realizing your property ain't worth that much. I did that. It's not fun. But what I'm going to share with you right now, if you apply this, it works really well. Okay, so before we dive into the BRRRR, you have to have a buy box. Identify this before you get started. So I'm going to share with you my buy box. And depending on where you invest at, these numbers can change, right? If you're investing in Blue Springs, this is not going to, these numbers ain't going to work. So where I invest at is KCMO. I buy in 64130. Where my wholesalers at? All right, I buy from you, dude. I'm on your list. Oh man, we need to do a deal. And so, so my wholesalers, then they know this about me right here. Well, 64131. Gosh, I wish I had better handwriting. 64132. 133. 134. Oh my gosh. I'll do 134.
Are you mainly east of 71, or are you both sides?
Both sides. Thanks to the hedge funds, they're buying on both sides. I piggyback off of the hedge funds coming in, buying houses, tearing them down, and building up markets. I piggyback off their ARVs. It's a whole different strategy. I don't know if I have time to get into that, but this right here is going to be good. So I buy in these zip codes right here, 2 1s. I want to be all in cost. When I say all in, that's purchase and rehab. So I'm not talking about property management, taxes, all the other stuff that comes along with it, because these numbers work. So for 3 1s, again, I do Section 8. So when I just list these bedroom counts off, they're the ones that's most important to me. Bathroom count doesn't matter with Section 8. It's only bedroom count. So for my 3 1s, I'm looking to be all in for $85K. And my 4 1s, around 90. Section 8 will pay $1,000 here. Section 8 will pay $1,350. And Section 8 will pay 4 1s, $1,650. Be careful with Section 8 because they will try to throw in utilities. This does not include utilities. This is just rent. And so I do not pay utilities. They're going to try to push you into paying the tenant's utilities, say you're going to get a better deal, make money on the utilities. It's a lie. Don't do it. Made that mistake. Trust me, done it 2 times, and now it's big. Yeah, it sucks. Nope. So, because all of a sudden they started, like you're paying utilities, they have the chilliest house, they have the warmest house in the winter, and then they start a car detailing business out in their driveway, and whose bill's it on, right? And so it's a major problem. So don't do that.
100%.
Now, here's why you gotta identify your buy box. And the reason why you have a buy box is if a property comes up in KCK, is that on my buy box? No, I delete that email. You can ask Dustin. I delete that. But if you invest in Kansas, there's nothing wrong with Kansas. This is just what works for me. I know a lot of investors that are very successful in KCK, right? Again, this is my buy box. And so another example, if I'm looking at a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and it's listed for $100,000, is that part of my buy box? It's not. I delete it. And so what this does is this is going to save you a lot of time and energy. If I go look at a 3-1 and they're asking, say, $60,000, I know my rehab needs to be a $25,000 budget. So if I go look at the house and it's gutted, it's passed. It's a no, automatically. And so, so forth. So once you identify your buy box, this is going to save you a lot of time and energy. If you're investing in Blue Springs, this is going to be a lot different because rent for a 2-1 might be $1,500. For a 3-1 might be $2,500, so you can pay more. So the biggest thing behind this buy box is you have I do these DSCR loans. Okay, there's a little formula they have. They have rent by your debt service. So if you divide your rent by your debt service, meaning your payment, interest, taxes, and insurance, your payment that you're paying to that mortgage company every single month, you take your rent. So let's give you an example. So $1,250 here, and your debt service is $1,000 a month, not property management, just your payment, interest, taxes, and insurance. So if you divide these 2 numbers out, it comes out to 1.25%. This is absolutely crucial you understand. If you're going to go into the BRRRR and really be successful at this, you have to understand this. I made this mistake where I thought because the house, it doesn't matter if this property is worth $1 million, you go to cash out refinance, the bank is going to keep knocking your loan amount down until your payment, interest, taxes, and insurance, your debt service, is $1,000. $1 million house, it doesn't matter. They're going to keep knocking this your loan amount. So you have $1 million into it, but they're saying, dude, we're only going to give you back $150,000 because your rent is $1,250. Does that make sense? Kind of ramble that kind of quick. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Okay, good. You have, so on the DSC loans, you're bringing the bank your rental property, right? You're saying, hey bank, I have this property. It rents for $1,250 a month. And let's say this house is, let's say you have $85,000 into this house. And you want to get your money back out. This house is worth $150,000. God, I'm terrible. Trying to think it right. Say it's 150K. So banks right now are doing 75% loan to value. So they're going to take this number, they're going to take 75% off of it. Let's say it comes to 125. These are just hypothetical numbers. So we're going to say this comes to $125,000. The house is worth $150. The bank says we'll give you $125. They run the numbers, and your mortgage payment comes to $1,250. They're going to deny that loan. They're going to cross that out and say, well, we got to bring that loan amount down to 100K, and then maybe that comes to $1,150. They're saying that's still not enough. They're going to knock this number down to your loan amount until your amortized schedule is payment is, oh my gosh, $1,000.
Basically, they really don't care about your ARV that much. It
Right.
means nothing for a DSCR loan. Whatever your ARV is, it's irrelevant. It's all about the payment threshold, making sure that the income from the property is going to cover that payment with a good margin, a 1.25% margin. Like we have it all the time. We're getting houses and we're all into them at, say, 60% of ARV. Like we just did a house, it's worth $255,000 and we're all in at like $155,000, like 60%, well below any underwriting guidelines, and they still only want to give us a loan for 60% because of the debt service coverage of that house. So that's what he's talking about, is that you're limited by the income, especially on single families, where generally they don't bring in as much income relative to the value of the asset.
Can I ask a question real quick? So basically, when they advertise, oh, we'll do 75%, that's not really true. They'll give you as much as will equal the rent.
As long as you're at a 1.25% minimum. And so that's why I know these numbers work in these specific zip codes. So here's how I come to understand this. So picture basically three markets. You have a market that is a high rental demand, and it's all rentals. You have cash buyers that came in, they buy a whole bunch of houses, they paid cash for them, they never hit the MLS. So meaning there's no comps for it. You have another pocket that, it's just like your everyday folks, like Blue Spring, they said like they just buy a house, they stay in there. They're very expensive houses. There's some flip activity going on, maybe not as much rental activity. And then you have another market that is, there's like a lot of flips going on. And you've seen that in Kansas City. There's a lot of people flipping houses actively. So you want to find a market, and this is why you want to come to these meetups. You want to find a market that has a lot of flip activity and buy your rentals in those pockets. As long as there's a lot of flip activity and you're buying your rental property outside around there, somewhere close, and I was mentioning about the hedge funds, you piggyback off their numbers. And so if there's a lot of guys that are flippers want to match the ARV. They push the market. And I just ride their coattails. I'm like, woohoo, you got $200,000 for that? I'm a BRRRR house right next door because I know my property's gonna be $200,000. So if I follow this method, then I know I'm safe on my numbers. Does that make sense? Right? I'm happy to break this down and get you to understand this. You don't want to learn this how I learned it. Let's go into BRRRR, breaking this down. So in order to buy a house, you have to find the house, right? So I buy 95% of my properties from wholesalers. I just bought one from Fred, just bought one from Savion. A lot of investors are like, wholesalers, you know, they make all this money, they don't do nothing. Bullshit. They have the hardest job out there. They absolutely do. They go out and deal with the customer, negotiate the prices. So the whole point of them making money, let them make their money. They're finding you the deals. If you're too lazy to not, you know, to start your own wholesale business, let them make their money. I bought a house last week. I paid $45,000 for it. Wholesaler made 20 grand. You think I was happy? I was in my buy box. I'm going to put $25,000 into it. So that's $70,000 for a 3-1. And so I'm making my money. He made his money. I high-fived him and said, hey, dude, bring me the next deal, right? So don't worry about what the wholesalers are making. Just make sure it fits in your buy box. So sometimes you got to negotiate these numbers a little bit. And really wholesalers appreciate it. If you come back and say, dude, look, I need to be in 85,000. You're asking 80, but I need 15,000 to rehab. You're going to have to come down 10,000 on the price. I'm just being honest with you. But you're going to want a whole bunch of wholesalers. You want to meet and greet, come to these meetups, get on as many wholesaler lists as you possibly can. And you know, in the beginning, it's a little difficult. You might get a few deals that come through. I mean, I'm flooded, 15, 20 deals that come through my inbox every single day. But because I have a buy box, I can delete most of them and just know that this isn't for me.